Hey everybody, it's Rob here. We just got a lot more information about the mercenaries that are coming here in just under 2 weeks. We have the full skill trees here. There is a new post from Wowhead. I'm going to link that below. And there are some pretty interesting and very strong mechanics and skills here that you can combine with the reinforcements. You can directly use it. And look at this one here, for example, Bastion. This is from Rahir, the shield guy. It basically casts a protective position for 5 seconds, redirecting 90% of the damage dealt to surrounding allies to himself. This reminds me of the Unity Ring of Diablo 3. You also get Unstoppable, and on top of this, there's a rune here, Inspiration. Wherever this Bastion is active, all the allies that are in this bubble, reminds me of the Oculus Ring as well, also deal 25% X damage. And you can probably combine this either with your reinforcement. So you can say, like, I don't know, whenever I cast my Hammer of the Ancients, it's gonna cast Bastion. And you can combine this in groups potentially during the raids, where you can almost have a perma uptime, because you can have 4 people with this Bastion and this bubbles around, similar with the Oculus Rings, and then just stand in there for, again, a 90% damage reduction and a 25% increased damage. And there's so many more things here. So let's get into it. Let's start with the Barbarian here. So we have, the name is Variana, and you guys can see there's always basically a decision you need to make. Either here on Variana, you're going with the Cleave skill tree, or you're going with the Shockwave skill tree, right? And every skill tree then can only be 1 point on each skill or passive. And then you can go down here. You can see there's like only basically 4 choices that you get to make. So either you go left or you go right, and then you take a skill with 1 of 2 passives or upgrades, and then another skill, choice of 2 with 1 or 2 passives. And we have the entire skill tree here. So we're starting out with Cleave, and right from the get-go, you can see here with Cleave that it's dealing quite a lot of weapon damage. So right now the assumption is that this 460% weapon damage that it's dealing is based on our weapon, the player's weapon. You see here 8 seconds cooldown. You basically cleave the enemies. They also work the arsenal system a bit in this, where they are basically using, once you're choosing the cleave skill tree, you're using like your dual wield stuff. And in the other skill tree here of the Barbarian, you're doing the upheaval Shockwave. So we have this cleave here with the runes where you as the player, you get attack speed from it, right? So this is just the base effect. You take cleave, then you can take one of these 2 runes. 1 inflicts vulnerable. So pretty frequently actually, 8 seconds cooldown, 3 seconds vulnerable uptime, guaranteed attack. Or you can get Hysteria, where you basically get a permanent buff to your character. Well, not the permanent, but for 5 seconds you get this buff. So it's like 8 seconds is the cooldown, 5 seconds buff, so that means a 3-second downtime. And you also get the bleed status effect that, for example, allows you on the barb to trigger all kinds of different stuff. And then basically you need to choose this one. So I would say we already have vulnerable soft, so we're gonna get 12% attack speed. And then you have the Bloodthirst here. This is the war cry, basically. You enter a Bloodthirst. This is for Variana. So this like actually buffs the mercenary. You get into a Bloodthirst. You gain 30% attack speed, 200% movement speed, and unstoppable. This is on the mercenary. And you gain an additional 10% attack speed. So if you combine this with Hysteria, you're already getting 22. And then you can also choose if you want the enemies to deal reduced damage, or you can choose another 15% attack speed. So that means you can actually get 12 plus 15, that would be 27, plus another 10, 37% attack speed. If you're not at the cap yet, this can basically put you there. And then we have the iconic Whirlwind. They actually showed this in a video. You can see here the Barbarian Whirlwinding. And as you can tell here, it is pretty fast. Like the speed of this Whirlwind, it doesn't reduce its movement speed. So you see like she's spinning like extremely fast. So even this old grandma is spinning faster than a Barbarian. Like look, the speed of the spin looks even crazier than max movement speed. I'm gonna play this once more in a full duration. Look at this normal speed, bam. It just completely blasts through. And that looks pretty strong. And this Whirlwind is basically inflicting bleeds. And then you have 2 runes here, one of which is, you might know this as an aspect right now, No Escape, where the mercenary is basically pulling in your enemies when she's casting Whirlwind. 60% increased size, and every 1.5 seconds it's pulling. The cooldown is only 9 seconds. So that's gonna be a ton of fun. And then you also have the Taste of Flesh. Again, you can only choose one, where you basically have life steal, or you heal for 1% of your max life whenever you or Variana deals direct damage to the enemy. So that's pretty sick. Pretty cool. And keep in mind, with the reinforcement, even if you don't want to take Variana, you can, I don't know, like use, let's say, Hoda with Whirlwind reinforcement. So whenever you Hoda, it's going to be still a cooldown, right? You Hoda, but then the Mercenary comes and spins whenever you Hoda with the reinforcement, and then it's going to pixel pull the enemies, and then you can just smash them. So there's going to be some pretty cool combination possibilities, is my guess. We'll have to see how crazy the cooldown will go up, like depending on which skill you're attaching the reinforcement to. But that's going to be wild. And then you have the second skill tree here. This is like a shockwave skill tree. This one didn't excite me all too much, but there's basically a lot of knockback, knockdown. You can read all these. This is like the two-handers, like it's doing upheavals and stuff. This is like the Earthbreaker. But even here you can see that with Rampage, for example, this is like 17 seconds downtime, 17 seconds cooldown, and then you have a 15% X damage to crowd control effects. And here you also get a guaranteed overpower. So there's like some pretty cool combinations where you can combine these, let's say, with a pulverized druid, and you can overpower even more often if you're putting this into the reinforcement slot. I think in general, like just an early judgment here from me, or like opinion, is that Variana is very good in the enforcement slot and not as good as a main mercenary, I think. But yeah, basically guaranteed overpower of 15% X, and you have these harpoons that pull in enemies. I think we also had some footage of the harpoons pulling. Maybe that was at the start. Yeah, right here. You see, this is basically what it looks like. This harpoon. That's the shield shot, and then this is the harpoon. Like you pixel pull the enemies, or you pull them towards you, and that could be pretty cool because basically does quite some damage, pulls them and stuns them, and then you have here a 30x multiplier for a lucky hit chance, or you have, and this is going to be very interesting, I think, for rogues, in particular if you are playing, I don't know, like a lucky hit based build, like either you get a 30% more lucky hit, or you're taking this one, where it basically reduces the enemy's resistance. And this seems to be a complete new mechanic, where you're reducing the enemy's resistances by 50%. And so this seems to have a 17 seconds cooldown. You reduce the enemy's res to crowd controls. That means you have basically 50% more chance or higher crowd control duration. And it's going to stagger the boss, and then the boss is staggered for 10 seconds, and you can just blast it down with your Frigid Finesse and like all the crazy Frigid Fate and all the crazy multipliers that Rogue has to its name. So I think that's going to be pretty strong. Next here we have the Cursed Child. This is like the child that can transform into a demon, and the skill tree basically looks like this. So you can either take the Haunt skill tree, which reminds me, this is the left one, which reminds me of the Diablo 3 Witch Dog, or you can take the Flame Surge skill tree, which is going to be where she transforms into a demon. But yeah, Haunt is basically very similar to Diablo 3, where it basically spreads when you kill the target. You also do a bunch of shadow damage, and then there is a chance to inflict vulnerable or chance to daze. And then this one here was really strong, Fields of Languish. So Altkin disintegrates an area for 6 seconds, slowing enemies and reduces the damage by 20%. Then on top of this, you can take Paranoia. So 20% damage reduction, daze, and then here you're getting 15% X DPS increase, and on lucky hits, this is going to be insane again for Fist of Fate builds or something, where you have another chance to daze on lucky hit for 1 second. I think that's going to be coming very strong. And then we have Condemned here, where you basically instantly execute an enemy. Pretty cool stuff. Then we have Chain of Souls. This one, because you can only choose one, right? It's going to be like in the skill tree. You either go left or you go right. And we'll go left and then left again. And then you're basically not going to take the Chain of Souls, unless you want to try. My God, this is going to be a chain. Amplify Suffering. Here you take more shadow damage. And then it reduces the cooldown of that skill. So we'll see how strong that's going to be. Maybe you can even make a DPS mercenary build. If they really scale off your weapon damage, again, we still have to wait and see what exactly it's going to do. But yeah, then we have the Flames tree, and I think this is going to be very strong for Sorks, because this basically makes you inflict burning damage. And you know, on Sorcerer, you always take, or in almost every build, you take the Firebolt enchantment to trigger burning. You don't even have to do this right now, because you right now anymore when the Vessel of Hatred comes, because you can just take these Flame Surge, and the Firebolt, a Fire Shot basic attack will make enemies burn. So you see here additional burning damage, and you can also take, on top of the burning, you can also take a rune where you get yet another 10% plus crit chance against enemies affected by a flame surge. So this is gonna have a 50% uptime, a bit less, but the burning I think will be permanent because it's the basic attack. So gonna be pretty cool. Obviously we'll see how exactly these will look like. And yeah, I mean, they said in the trailer, and they showcased this a couple times, where you're basically being transformed into a fire demon. So it's gonna look something like this. And here, boom. This is probably like the slam. What's it could be called? Storm of Fire. Maybe it's Flame Surge. I'm not sure. Like, this looks like a ground slam. This is probably what one of them looks like. It's definitely not the Firewall. So yeah, that looks pretty cool. Maybe it's Flame Surge, maybe it's the Storm of Fire. I'm hovering all these. So basically a lot of damage again. And then you can scale it with more DPS, or you can also get something interesting here. And I think this is more for the reinforcement slot, where you are getting like primary resources, like you're getting 15% of your mana every second or something, as long as you're into this Firestorm. And then we have the Wave of Flame here, like a fire wall basically, or fire wave that is moving, and it can reset when you cast an ultimate, so you can probably cast this a lot. Or it can also trigger a 15% damage over time multiplicative increase. That could be pretty cool. Then we have Subo, the Drunken Archer, and by the way, there's also like a bunch of these models here. I'm gonna put that link below as well, that WoW had the data mined here, or got their hands on, of all these like cool mercenary looks. So I think there's some pretty cool styles here. Pretty much for each of them. Okay, but let's go to the Subo skills. This is like a rogue DPS ranged kind of build. And there's a trap skill tree. And then there is a fire Molotov cocktail skill tree. I'm not really the biggest fan of the traps, but there looks to be a pretty of cool thing. So this is like ranged, like pierce shots. Damaging an elite grants you movement speed. You have cover fire, where you also like a ranged attack. And then you can immobilize enemies. Or this one was really strong, an opening fire. So you basically have a skill, okay, it has 20 seconds cooldown, lasts for 4 seconds. And whenever it slows enemies, you are dealing 25% multiplicative critical strike damage to enemies slowed by Subo. So in general, you see guys, there's actually quite some power creep that you're getting with all of these. Like overall, it looks like you have like, I don't know, 20% damage reduction or toughness increase, and another like 30% multiplicative damage increase overall from the mercenaries. Plus they can solve problems like vulnerable, they can solve like overpower, they can solve your resource stuff, and very cool things actually. So yeah, 25x, we'll see if we can reduce the cooldown somehow. Right now the uptime would only be like 20-25%. And then you have the trip mines here, where you like throw mines that can either make vulnerable or also give you another crowd control duration and bigger size. And then we have a cool one here, where he's basically throwing a Molotov cocktail, like a burning arrow that explodes. Yeah, 16 more. It's like 2 weeks, guys. Then we're ready. So yeah, you see this is like crossbow stuff. You get 30% X damage over time. So you see this is like a 11 seconds cooldown, 3 seconds uptime, 30x for damage over time skills. And this, for example, could be used on the Barrage and Dario Rogue, or on the Firebolt Sorcerer, to have like some pretty good nukes. Like if you, for example, on the Rogue, if you are able to combine this with the Stagger on the boss, and you get another 1.3x for your dot damage, which is pretty much all your Endariel's poison damage, it's gonna be very strong. Or even for the Spiritborn with all the new poison stuff. Could be pretty cool. And then yeah, you also have something here, I don't think this is that good, but where you basically have a chance to drop heal potions. Then you have Snipe here, massive DPS. It's probably single target. Okay, maybe it hits more enemies, we're not sure. It might even be this. This might be the snipe ability here that we see. Boom. Maybe it's something like this. It's very hard to 100% connect the ability with the video footage that we've seen. But yeah, you can basically, the snipe can basically trigger more Molotov cocktails, again, giving you a better uptime on this 1.3x multiplier, or you can use Ambusher for more lucky hit chance for enemies damaged by Subo. Pretty cool. Then we have Explosive Charge here, big explosions. And this one, basically, they detonate earlier if you overpower stuff. And there's also a rune here per stack that you get a 2% multiplicative increased overpower damage. And it looks like there's some translation here or some data mine error that it's gonna be detonated faster if you overpower more. And then there's also another rune here. But I don't really see too much use cases of this one. I think most people would take Snipe for hopefully an almost 100% uptime on Scorched Earth. And then there's also like a bunch of explanation here on the post, like how it works and stuff. You can read all about this. I'll show you here one of the stronger ones, I think. This is right here. This is the Shield Bearer. And he has like a charge tree. Like this is the Captain America. He can throw the shield. He can charge with the shield. Lots of stuff you can do here. And this basically fortifies you. So you get Fortify. You can get up to 15% armor. Or you can get slow. I think most people will take the armor because, for example, there is an armor scaling build on the Spiritborn. Because there's like a... Let me see if I can find it. There's like an item that basically makes you deal more damage the more armor you have. And if this works well, this might give us 15% damage basically, or almost. There's the armor scaler built here, and there is this. It's not completely ready yet. The aspect of unyielding hits. This one is looking at pretty strong. Here, casting a gorilla skill as if this is on a 280% of your armor to all attacks. So yeah, there can be some pretty cool stuff here, but 15% armor is good anyways, because keep in mind we get 1,000 armor penalty now. Then we have skill tree here, Provoke. Like you gain 5% damage reduction for each target up to 20% when you're taunting enemies. But that seems pretty good. You also have here a rune that deals 10x increased damage. So this is like pretty cool. I would take Shield Charge. It gives you Fortify. It gives you armor. Then you take Provoke. It gives you damage reduction. It gives you 1.1x. Or it can reduce other cooldowns. And then you can use Crater here. And Crater is also insane. This is basically like strikes the ground, you deal damage, pulling in enemies, but on top of the pulling, it also looks like your next 2 core skills within 10 seconds are going to deal 25% X multiplier. And then you also have here something that inflicts vulnerable, but I think most people will just take the Iron Wolf's core, big DPS. So yeah, I think this is pretty strong. And I'm not sure if you can take the same as the reinforcement, but like here is probably the strongest one. Round Slam, not yet. It's okay. It gives you healing. It gives you max life. You can read all this if you want to pause the video. You basically like slam the ground. You do stuff and you get 15 rest with this rune. Or you deal taunts enemies and you can occur like... Whenever you use a shield potion, I like... whenever you use a health potion, it basically taunts enemies. And I like that you can have a lot of control over your mercenaries. Like... When exactly do you want it to, you know, taunt the enemies? Like you just drink a health potion and then it taunts the enemies. And you can unlock more effects of this. So that's pretty cool. And then we have, I think, what I taught in the intro, like one of the strongest skills, Bastion. Where here takes a protective position, redirecting 90% of the damage that would be dealt to surrounding allies to himself. So let's say you use this in a group. All 4 members, you see like one of the mercenary is casting this as a reinforcement, right? Because the reinforcement works in the group. So you can have 4 times Bastion reinforcement on your main ability or on some ability that you can control, right? You can control the timing. Let's say, I don't know, you take this on Warcry, on Barb. You have Warcry, Bastion reinforcement, if it works. You click Warcry, then the mercenary takes this defensive position. You have a 90% damage reduction. All your allies can go into this position or into this bubble, whatever it's going to look like, to get 10 times less damage. And then on top of this, if you take Inspiration, you're also dealing 25x, 25% more damage for 5 seconds. This is insane. And then you can like rotate this in groups and keep getting this. It reminds me of Oculus Ring and Unity at the same time. And there's also another one here where you get max life healing and you get cooldown reduction. However, I think just this Bastion with Inspiration is just so insane. And then you have the Shield Throw. This is pretty much the Captain America build that we see. I think it's right here as well. Yeah, this is the shield throw you see. The shield is like bouncing off like all the enemies, just like the Captain America. He's throwing the shield, it's bouncing and it's doing a lot of stuff. And then like a boomerang, it's returning to him, right? I think that looks pretty cool. Boom, here's the demon guy, the cursed shot, and then there's the shield throw. Basically, so pretty cool stuff. And yeah, it also hits enemies multiple times. And you have another one here where you trigger ground slam and shield throw, or you do the consecrated shield where you dealing direct damage, consecrated enemy heals you. This is like a lot of healing. 6% max life once per target. You attack 10 enemies, you get 60% of your life. Like, this seems like a crazy way to sustain depending on like what the final cooldown will be. Again, we don't know for sure how good or how hard it is to reset those. Maybe they benefit from our cooldown reduction. We don't really have any information, so hopefully we're gonna get some more stuff, because some of these actually deal a lot of weapon damage. Like, looking at Cleave, for example, here, 460% weapon damage. I mean, you could even make a build, like, I don't know, you might be able to take Gushing Wounds on the Barb, take Hemorrhage, and scale the Bleed of the Mercenary, because 460 is like way better than any of the core Barb skills could ever be, right? So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, core Barbs are like in a pretty bad spot, so maybe there's gonna be some changes there. But overall, I think the system is pretty cool, where you can basically combine stuff, and the mercenary supports you in some cool way. It's not just giving you damage, you also have these options, but you also have pull, you have overpower, you have vulnerable, you have resource problems that you can solve, and many other things. So I like it a lot, and we'll see. Again, the final skill tree is gonna look like this here, and everything seems to be there, so I'm pretty certain this is gonna be up in the planners here very, very soon. Again, we've been cooking a lot for Vessel of Hatred already. There's, I think, gonna be some pretty cool and some pretty crazy builds. Like, I'm most stoked for payback builds and for Stinger with payback. So we'll see. Like, there's Poison Jaguar, there's like one-shot payback builds here with some big multipliers that we have in the game. And yeah, we'll see how all these are gonna be turning out. But yeah, I'm super excited for Vessel of Hatred. And yeah, hope you guys check out the Mercenaries. I can't wait to try these all in just 2 weeks now, my friends. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon. GG. If you liked this video, make sure to subscribe, leave a like or a comment. I'm also live on Twitch almost every day, so come and say hi.